Well, you could, if you want to argue, the C is cascading. But
I assume Coatesville, did they ever have a high school at Coatesville back at those?
They did. One time, this fellow I know, Mel Daniel, he told me once about each of the schools, what their sports teams were called, and I can't remember. Styles, Clayton, I can't remember, but I remember that John Marlowe, the IU announcer in
Yeah.
the '70s, he lived outside of Clayton. I was at his house once.
Chuck Marlowe.
Chuck Marlowe, yeah.
Yeah.
His son John
Channel 4.
was a friend of mine.
Okay.
And I said, how do you put up with that?
Ready?
Yeah.
Hit the button, we'll go.
Those are patient.
I'll get everybody's attention. We'll go ahead and get started this morning. Will you please join me to pledge allegiance to the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we'll get started this morning. Very first thing we got to do is have some minutes we got to approve from the September 17th meeting that we all received on email.
I move the minutes be approved.
Been moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, Tom, on the bid opening of the Otis Armstrong ditch 708. Otis Thompson. Otis Armstrong. Thompson, excuse me.
Yes. So today we have the bid letting for the Otis Thompson Trib 3 reconstruction. Just a reminder, this project is set up in two phases because we have the bore under the highway and the railroad, which is one phase, and the tile installation throughout the fields is the other phase. So first bid received for phase 1 of the Otis Thompson Trib 3 reconstruction, received from Arthur's Excavation and Farm Drainage. And again, this is for phase 1, which is the bore. This bid is in the amount of $256,500. That's $256,500. And the next bid for phase 2, also from Arthur's Excavation and Farm Drainage. And the Arthur's Excavation Farm Drainage bid for phase 2 in the amount of $22,979 even. That's $22,979. These were the only two bids received for this project, so if the board would like to recess for 5 minutes to give me a chance to look over these and make sure they're responsive to the bid packet.
Yep, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
After reviewing the bids, the recommendation would be to approve or to award the bid for the Otis Thompson Trib 3 Regulated Drain Reconstruction Phase 1 and Phase 2 to Arthur's Excavation and Farm Drainage. Would you like those totals again?
Yeah, give me the totals again.
Okay, so the total for Phase 1, the bid amount is $256,500, $256,500. And for Phase 2, the estimate of $22,979, and that's $22,979. Both bids are responsive to the bid packet, and the recommendation will be to approve both bids. And I'll answer any questions you might have.
Do you want to put this in form of motion, then have discussion, talk about it?
I don't know if you need, can they do both the same, both bids, one motion? Okay.
What's the time frame you got to finish it up on?
December 1st is the deadline. Obviously, weather permitting.
Okay. Entertain a motion, then we'll have some.
I move that we accept the bid for Phase 1 and Phase 2 from Arthur
Excavation and farm drainage.
Excavation for the amount of $279,279. Sorry.
Been moved to second. Second. Open for discussion. Question I got, still goes back to the thing of the highway department. This $256,500, that's basically the cost of the construction of the bore, right?
Correct.
Okay. And that's, out of that, we're gonna get
Only a portion will be actually assessed to the landowners.
only a
Yes.
portion of that, right?
Yeah, so these bid numbers are for the entire project, and if you remember on the breakdown of the estimated costs for the reconstruction, where I had it broke down,
Yeah.
cost to the watershed versus cost to CSX and cost to NDOT. So you can see at the bottom, the overall total estimate is $279,488.62. So these two bids are a little below that estimated cost. So this is the amount that we expect to pay for the project. This is not the amount that will be assessed to the landowners.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Only the estimated $104,183.62.
$104,000 is what you estimate
An
cost.
estimated per acre estimate of $123.07 per acre of what is going to be assessed to the landowners, correct?
Okay, all right. Okay, any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda, I have no old business unless the board has any old business they would like to discuss. Under new business, you can see I've listed regulated drain reassessment hearing schedule, and then I've got 7 drains laid out there under that heading. Just a little bit of background, we've discussed previously in previous months this year about the issue we've run into once we started correcting all of the schedules of assessments for all the regulated drains, making sure the watershed boundaries were where they need to be. We've run across a number of parcels that are going to have to be added to a drain. There are numerous different instances that's created this situation. I don't think it's appropriate to assess somebody out of the blue for a drain that they don't know they're going to be assessed for, so I think it's appropriate that we have hearings for all of these drains where we have to make changes to the actual watershed boundary or affected acres for those drains. Many of these hearings that we're going to have, we won't actually be changing the rate, the maintenance rate that they pay. We're not looking at changing that. It's just a matter of establishing the new watershed boundary and the new schedule of assessments based on affected acreage. So we've got about 35 or 36 of these drains that we're going to have to work through, and I'm hoping to get them done before March, because if we get them done before March, then we can get that information submitted to the auditor and the treasurer, and those changes will go into effect for next year's property taxes. So it's a little bit ambitious. Again, we've only got really 4 meetings between now and March, so we're going to have to split these up. So this first list of 7 drains, my recommendation is that we set assessment hearings for these 7 drains at the November meeting. Now, just like I said, of those 7 drains, only one of those drains am I actually looking at raising the rate. The rest are just a matter of establishing the new schedule of assessments based on the watershed revisions that have been made over the years. So, again, there are about 35 or 36 of these, so we'll plan on doing 6 or 7 every month for the next 4 months. I will answer any questions you might have. I know that's a lot, and it's going to be a lot of work. The trick is going to be to make sure we explain before each meeting exactly what's happening. That way we don't have to go through all of this for every one of those individual hearings. Making sure, and I assume we'll get a lot of phone calls when people get these notices, so a lot of people will be able to explain to them what's happening, and they probably won't even show up to the hearing. But we need to account for, possibly up to 100 people maybe at the next meeting.
Is this based because of change of ownership, or?
It's a number of different things. One is splits that were done years ago that were never correctly updated. So legally, you could start assessing them now for that drain, because when they did the split, it should have been explained to them what the issue was. But if they did a split 5 years ago and haven't been assessed, and then suddenly get an assessment out of the blue, I would be upset too. So like I say, it's really just a matter of trying to be fair to all the landowners, making sure they're aware of any new assessments that are going to be placed on them. Like I said, some of them are splits that were never correctly administered. The other is watershed revisions, because again, when we do a reconstruction, 9 times out of 10, the engineers are coming back with a new, more accurate watershed boundary for that specific drain. So if you change the watershed for one drain, and you've got regulated watersheds that surround that, you've got to adjust those as well. So again, the code really doesn't speak to this real clearly. I think that, so let's take the Otis Thompson, for example. So we do a reconstruction on the Otis Thompson. We get a new revised watershed from the engineers on the Otis Thompson. I think legally, when you have the hearing to establish the Otis Thompson watershed, the new Otis Thompson watershed, those changes to the surrounding watersheds are kind of understood or acceptable. And if we were doing it right when it happened, I would feel fine with doing that without a hearing. But the fact that these watersheds have been revised over the last 10, 15 years, again, they've gone all these years without paying any assessment, then suddenly get one out of the blue, they're going to be upset as they naturally should be. So those are just 2 examples of what created this kind of mess that we're in.
Well, if you got people that you have adjoining watersheds, and you move them from one to the other, really except for minute difference in change between the drain, they're still going to, instead of paying on this one, now they're going to be paying on this one and not on that one.
Right. And generally, most commonly, it's a parcel that's split. Part of the parcel is in one watershed, part of the parcel is in the other one. So if you make a change to the watershed boundary, you're just adjusting their rates based on the affected acres in each watershed. That kind of situation, I don't think warrants a hearing, because if they were involved with the hearing process, they would understand that I'm going to pay less on this drain, but I'm going to pay more on this drain. These issues are more ones that happened years ago and wasn't corrected in a timely fashion. So I think it's appropriate to have these hearings because, again, so like when it comes to adding a new assessment to any parcel, so we do a lot of the taxing software changes when it's just a matter of changing affected acres or rates. We can make those changes in the taxing software in our office. But when it comes to adding a new assessment to a parcel, we actually can't do that. That has to be done at the auditor's office. So again, the fact that right there tells you that there's a little bit more that's going to be required if you're just going to suddenly start assessing somebody for a drain. So while I can say that of these 36 drains, if a legal mind were to dig into the code and look at all those, he would probably say maybe a third of these, do you actually have to have a hearing based on the code? I think it's appropriate to have these hearings just so that nobody is, caught in the dark, caught out of the blue with a new assessment. If the board feels differently, certainly let me know, because it's less work for us. But I think it's the appropriate thing to do.
That's fine. I think you're being open.
Yes.
That's what it's all about.
And it's recognizing that, a lot of these are more the county's fault than the landowners. Again, if the split was done 10 years ago and that information was submitted and it was never actually correctly updated in the taxing software, that's more on us, the county, than it is the landowner. So I don't think they should be, I don't want anybody to be able to say, I don't think I should be assessed for this. That hearing also gives those landowners a chance to give their opinion, whether they think they should be assessed or should not be assessed. It gives all of those aspects of assessment at least a chance to be aired open.
The only thing it's going to be is whether or not they think it should be in the watershed, kind of like that one we had North 74.
Correct.
Where the argument was, my water does or does not go that direction.
Correct.
And according to the map, it does, and that's what you have to stand behind.
Right.
You can't,
we can be confident about our watershed boundaries because we've done so much work trying to get more and more information to make those watershed boundaries as accurate as possible. That's just the natural progression of that is obviously assessments are going to change, not assessments as far as rate, but assessments as far as how many acres you're actually paying on. Because I can tell you, we've got people that don't pay on drains that they should, and we got people that are paying on drains that they shouldn't. So while we could just go through and do a wide brush and just fix everything all at once and not have any hearings or whatever, I don't think that's the intention behind this board all along has been. We're trying to be as open with people, as transparent. We want them to understand it. We don't want you to just get a bill and pay it. We want you to understand why you're paying it because that makes it easier when we have to make changes. You know, if you can convince them of why they're in the watershed and why they're paying assessment in the first place, well then if 10 years down the road something happens and that changes a little bit, they can feel confident knowing that we knew what we were talking about in the first place, so obviously we know what we're talking about as far as any revisions that might need to be done. So again, it's not ideal, and we could try and schedule these over the next year and try to get them all fixed for 2027, but for my mind, so many decisions have to be made throughout the year that all of this information is important. When I go to decide if a drain's going to be on or off assessment, I need that watershed to be assessed accurately if I want to actually make the right decision as far as whether a drain should be on or off assessment. As far as classifying the drain, again, all of these things are very important in all of these steps that are necessary for the regulated drains. So I would hope that we could get these all done by I guess the February meeting would be the last one that we had the last few hearings on. That's my hope. If the board doesn't want to take on that much and you want to span them out a little bit more and take a little bit longer to take care of them, I'm fine with that too. That's why I wanted to at least have this on the agenda today to start the conversation going.
Well, we'll have a better idea after the very first one.
That's kind of why I started with this group. These are all, a couple of these are bigger watersheds, but these are all watersheds. I'll pull it up on the map here to kind of show you how I've laid it out here. And it's purely based on the number of landowners that are in the watersheds, and it's mainly for the mailing purposes, because again, this round of hearings, we're gonna have to send out about 250 notices to landowners. So you can see all of the red watersheds. We've got the Foster Fletcher to the north. We've got the Asbury Lynn in Lindsborg. We've got the Joel Tobin west of Newcore, the Clarence Widener, which is just south of Crawfordsville. And then we've got the Margaret Rimley, which is just on the west side of 231, just south of Newmarket. The George McLean, which is just east of that. And then the William Davis, which is just south of that. So again, out of those 7 drains, the Margaret Rimley, this one right here, is the only one that I'm looking at raising assessment on, the rate on, only because of the work that we've had to do and still have left to do. So the other 6, really, I think, I haven't done a real deep dive into it, but just on first glance, it looks like the other 6, we could maintain the same rate just as long as we get the affected acres corrected.
Is the Rimley, is that the one that goes through Newmarket?
No, that's the Basil and Anna Van Cleve. Is the one that goes through Newmarket.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you need that? We don't need it to form motion.
Yeah, she will need to actually make a motion to set a assessment hearing for those 7 drains, if you want to do all 7, if you want to split them up, however you want to do it. It's boards.
I'm with Dave, let's go through the first round and see what happens.
Okay.
I move that we set an effective date for these 7 drains for the November meeting.
Second.
It'd be November 12th.
Motion been made and second.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
I did.
Okay.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. See what happens. Okay, other business. Do you have any idea yet of, we've tried this before, of the reconstructions that you're gonna do in a year advance, we tried to send letters out to those fellows, those individuals to let them kind of know when they start doing their spring planting intentions that they're going to be coming up. So that might be something we want to attach later on.
I know that historically we've kind of gone back and forth on the landowner informational meetings, but for reconstructions, I think that's the best way to make sure people know. And with a couple of the ones that we have on the schedule for next year, they are kind of like the ones we did this year. They're continuations of reconstructions that we started before. So those, I think it's very appropriate to have a landowner informational meeting so those landowners can come in and say, hey, what you did has fixed all our problems, everything's working fine, we may not need to reconstruct. So I think it's probably appropriate to continue to have, in the fall, have landowner informational meetings for those drains that we have on the schedule for reconstruction the following year. If nothing else, to gather information on whether the reconstruction is warranted. And the second, like you said, to make sure farmers have an idea of what's coming on, and then if they want to adjust how they plant their field or harvest their field or whatever, then they can have that information to make that decision. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, well,
Do you have a list of what to do in the next 3 years?
Yes. So here you can see, this is part of the report that I gave you back May or June, the regulated drain classification report and long-range plan for reconstruction. So you can see this is the schedule. So these are the drains that we reconstructed in 2025. So in 2026, the John Coyner, Richard Graham, Needham Boer, Walter Schoen, Henry Lee II. And then in 2027, we have the John Gailey, Raymond Welliver, Jennings Miller, and Charles Ludlow I. So the list of drains that you see in 2026, so the Walter Schoen, again, this is a drain that we did a reconstruction on 6 years ago, I believe it was. So we reconstructed all of the downstream tile, but there is a large portion of upstream tile. And when we had that hearing and it set that reconstruction for the first phase, we made it clear to the landowners, we'll get this done, and then we'll have you guys back in a room to see how that has affected all of that upstream drainage that's still the old, 100-year-old clay. The John Coyner is kind of being pushed by the landowners, so that may not be as necessary to have a landowner informational meeting, but again, what does it hurt having that? We may find out something that we don't know, beforehand. So yeah, I would recommend that the board, that we set landowner informational meetings for those 5 drains sometime between now and, say, December. Just that, plenty of time. We could
Okay.
do that at the December meeting. It wouldn't hurt anything.
well, it's that way, at least they have the knowledge that was gonna be done.
Well, and we require their knowledge as well as they require ours. I
Right.
mean, the Needham Boer is on the list because there is a small run of tile. I'll pull it up on the map here to give you an idea what I'm talking about, if my mouse will work. So the Needham Boer drain, consists of this long stretch of open ditch, which is about 3 miles of open ditch. And then you've got this one tile coming north out of the head wall that is part of the Needham Boer drain as well. Now you've got other tiles coming in, but those are separate, different regulated drains. So I reclassify it as in need of reconstruction because that tile that is the Needham Boer tile is undersized, has very little cover, and it's breaking down constantly. So it does need to be reconstructed. We've got a lot of open ditch work that I'd like to get done as well. And so talking with them will help us to kind of mold that project as far as making sure that we get the tile done, the open ditch work done, rather than trying to fund 3 miles of open ditch maintenance out of the maintenance fund. It would make more sense to kind of fold some of that more expensive work into that reconstruction because the tile isn't going to be that expensive to replace. It's not that long and it's not that big. So in a case like this, getting those landowners in a room to say, hey, this is what we're thinking, they can start to give us their knowledge as far as what they've seen and what they would like to see done. And then we can kind of try to mold that project to be the best benefit to the landowners that we can make it, The Walter Schoen, again, it's a matter of we reconstruct the downstream end. We just need to get those guys in a room to figure out if any of the upstream tile needs to be reconstructed now. The others, again, a couple of those are more landowner interest reconstructions. The Henry Lee II, again, that's going to be one that the landowners have not been really involved with, so they're going to be very taken aback if they get a notice in the mail saying we're going to reconstruct this drain. But if we get them in a room to explain to them why it needs to be reconstructed because it's actually bottlenecked, that's very important so that when we get to the hearing, we don't have all those people coming in to object to it, you know what I mean? If we just set a hearing and get people in a room, you've seen how it is. A lot of people object, not based on what the reality is, they just don't know. They're not aware of these problems, So having that initial landowner meeting in most cases is almost no benefit whatsoever. But for our end on this, for this situation here, like I said, the board has been very, very adamant correctly about making sure, how do we make sure these landowners know about this as far in advance as possible so that they can no longer say, I would have planted my field different, or I wouldn't have planted there, or whatever. Those landowner informational meetings are going to be good, if nothing else, to allow them the opportunity to kind of head that off at the pass. Now, you're still going to have landowners that don't show up to those meetings, and they're still going to make the same argument, but at least we will know we did everything we could do. That's kind of the point.
Okay.
So if that's the way the board wants to address this, then I'll probably just come to you with a request in November to set landowner informational meetings for those specific drains at the December meeting.
All righty.
We'll try not to load you up with too much in one meeting. That's what I'm trying to avoid.
Okay, any public comments? Anybody got any comments? Anybody? You got any comments, Mr. Taylor? I've always asked you because I'd always.
It's likely I'd say something.
All right, hearing none. Next meeting will be November the 12th on a Wednesday, 9:30 here. Entertain motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much for coming. 27 minutes. Yep.
All the money on that project is avoid.
Huh?
All the money on that project is.
Yeah, I mean, that 1,000 feet of 8-inch tile, that's like nothing. I'd do that out of maintenance if I could, but.
They're gonna pay for it one way or the other, and just roll it all in.
Well, see, and that's the thing about that, if we did nothing on this and let it go by and say it's already turned off,